Hello and welcome back. I'm Emily Jean if you're new here, and today we're going to do another book tag. We're going to do the Contradictions Book Tag. So a lot of I like this, but I didn't like that. If you want to hang out, see what my answers are going to be, grab your coffee, tea, whatever you want to drink, and let's get cozy. I am on a big water kick lately, and I'm actually noticing a lot of positive changes. Imagine that. So the Contradiction Book Tag, I was tagged by Hugo from the Scientist Reading World. Thank you, Hugo, for tagging me in this. I'm so excited to go through these answers with you. One, I love this genre, but I didn't like this book. Okay, so for my answer for this one, it's Death's Daughter by Amber Benson. I have a full rant review video on this if you want. I'll link it in the description below. This is written by somebody who was an actress in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and is a writer now, and I was so excited because I love this genre. It's occult fiction, it's fantasy. She is the daughter of Death, and she, through a series of events, becomes Death, or like has to save her father, and she's like in the demon world and there's portals and like what? It sounds so good, and I could not stand our main character. I could not stand her. It was one of those books that I just like was really frustrated reading, but I do have to be honest, it has some stay factor because there are things from that book that I still think about today, and there are parts that make me want to go back and read the second, and parts that I absolutely don't want to go anywhere near it. So I love this genre, but didn't like this book, Death's Daughter by Amber Benson. Second question, I rarely read this genre, but I loved this book. So for Valentine's Day this year, I did a romance reading vlog because I don't typically pick up like just romance. A lot of my fantasy or even sci-fi or other books I read have elements of romance, but I never pick up like a straight romance. And so I picked up a few for Valentine's Day, and I actually found one that I adored, and it was called A Passion for Him by Sylvia Day. There were pirates, there were mystery men, there was adventure, and it was really, really enjoyable. So I would definitely recommend that. And I've actually, it's opened my heart to just straight romance, so I'm going to try a few more as well. Next question is, I love this trope, but I didn't like this book. This was a little difficult for me to think of, so this is kind of like a make it work answer, but I typically love the trope of somebody from the future comes back to the past to try to like save the day or make a change or something. And so I had found this Audible original called Archangel by William Gibson. I had just finished listening to Impact Winter, and it was so good. It was an Audible original, and I was obsessed. So I wanted to like devour more Audible originals, and nothing so far has compared with Impact Winter. It was so good. Definitely check it out if you want like end of the world vampire monsters. Just so good. So I was hoping this would be something like this, but it wasn't. It just like did not hold my interest. I was going to DNF it, but it's pretty short. It's less than 3 hours. So I just powered through and finished it, and it was just a little disappointing. It wasn't super exciting. We do have some people who come back from the future. There's like political takeover and stuff that I thought would be pretty intriguing, but it was just low interest for me, just kind of meh. So I love this trope, but I didn't like this book. The trope, person from the future comes back to save the world. The book, Archangel by William Gibson. Question number 4, and there's 8 questions if I didn't say that. So question number 4, we're halfway through. I hate this trope, but I loved this book. So this trope is one that bugs me so much, and it's the miscommunication trope. If people would just share one word, one little heads up, then things in the book would be okay, and then we wouldn't have like the everything going wrong and like perceiving things incorrectly based on it missing information. So the miscommunication trope tends to really bug me because it's the only thing keeping the tension there. If they just had a conversation, all that tension would go away, right? But I also kind of love to hate it because sometimes that frustration can be really enjoyable in a weird way. So anyways, that's the trope, miscommunication. And the series, the full series, not just the first book, is From Blood and Ash. I loved this series. There's a lot of miscommunication, but I think what saves this series for me is that by Jennifer L. Armentrout, if you aren't familiar with that series yet, is it's not the only trope. There are lots of moving parts and pieces in this series. There are lots of things that I enjoyed, but there were definitely pieces during the book about where miscommunication was a big factor, and I was very frustrated with that, but I loved this series. So the From Blood and Ash full series so far by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Question number 5. I love this author, but I didn't like this book. And for me, that is the author that I love is Elizabeth Berg. I have almost her complete collection of books, and I've read all of them, but I thought I gave it to a little free library, but I decided to keep it in order to like have the collection maintained and also maybe give it another chance next Christmas, because it is a retelling of Mary and Joseph. It's called The Handmaid and the Carpenter. It's by Elizabeth Berg. I love everything she writes. She writes very soulful. She writes about like women coming of age, but like later in age. So like once they've been married, maybe divorced or widowed, about them kind of rediscovering themselves. Heartfelt like family stories as well. And so I really like the books that she writes, but this is a retelling of Mary and Joseph, and it just fell so flat for me. It portrayed both Mary and Joseph, and I'm not really that religious. I was raised Catholic. I don't have like super strong ties to a like authentic retelling of the Mary and Joseph story. I'm open to alternative stories. Christopher Moore has an awesome retelling of like Jesus's birth story and like Jesus and his friends, which I really, really enjoy. So I was hoping that this would be just kind of like a heartwarming story I could read every Christmas. It's pretty short, but it ended up portraying both of them in really weird lights that I just didn't vibe with. I didn't feel like a like nice Christmas story. So maybe I went in expecting something different. I think her goal was to bring humanity to the characters, but it almost like made it depressing, I guess is the best way to describe it. So love this author, but don't like this book, Handmaid and the Carpenter by Elizabeth Berg. Next question is, I previously disliked a book by this author, but I loved this book, and that would be Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I previously tried to read 3 times Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell and could not get into it for the life of me. It felt so dry. I just could not get into it enough to commit to that chunky of a book. So I was a little hesitant to pick up Piranesi. I was nervous that it would be the same, but I'd seen so many people rave about it. It is about this character who lives in this labyrinth of a house, and there's a little bit of mystery in it. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a go. And I loved it. It was so weird. It was so strange. The first like 50 pages were questionable, but once I got past that, I was obsessed. So Piranesi by Susanna Clarke was such a good read. Definitely one of those ones that makes you like think differently while you're in it. I don't know if you have that experience sometimes of like your brain just kind of shifting when you're reading a particular book to see things a little bit differently. So for question 6, I previously disliked a book by this author, but I loved this book, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. And the previous book was Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Okay, question number 7. I love this cover, but I didn't love this book. I cannot remember if I did a rant on this or if I just avoided it. I might have, I don't know. If I did, I'll link it in the description. I loved the cover of The Poison Heart by Caitlin Byron. By Caitlin Byron. And I did not like this book at all. When I see people raving about this book, it's one of those ones where I get so confused about if we're reading the same book or not, because I don't see any of the things that people are talking about that I wanted to see. I wanted to see the apothecary vibe. I wanted to see the magic. I wanted to see the family ancestry. And all I saw was like, well, actual errors in the book, like not grammatical errors, but factual errors about some of the plants that she was talking about. There were just like political things that were in the book that weren't talked about enough, but felt like they were just dropped in to kind of hit the hype words of the day. I did not like it at all. So The Poison Heart by Caitlin Byron, I gave it to a Little Free Library, so I don't have the cover anymore, but it is a beautiful cover. It's got this gorgeous person on the front, and she's got like all these kind of poisonous plants around. I even received in one of my subscription boxes at one point like a woven cheesecloth with all the poisonous plants on it based on that book, and it's so beautiful looking, and I wanted to love the book and hang up that cheesecloth, and just nope, just couldn't do it. I might still hang up the cheesecloth. I think that would be okay. So it's cool to have poisonous plants up, right? So anyways, I love this cover, but I didn't like this book, The Poison Heart by Caitlin Byron. And our final question of this tag is, I don't like this cover, but I loved this book. And that would be When We Believed in Mermaids by Barbara O'Neill. It has actual people on the cover, which I don't usually like, and it is really only kind of their silhouettes on a beach scene. Now that I've read the book, I loved it, but I wouldn't necessarily pick it up because of the cover. When We Believed in Mermaids by Barbara O'Neill is such a beautiful book. It's contemporary. It's about two sisters reuniting. It's about their shared history and kind of remembering, reliving, and processing some of the trauma from their past and growing together again. And it is just so beautiful and heartwarming, and some moments are really heart-wrenching, but I loved it. So number 8, I don't like the cover, but I loved the book. When We Believed in Mermaids by Barbara O'Neill. Okay, so that is it for the Contradictions book tag. Thank you so much, Hugo, for tagging me. And I'm going to tag Rye from Rye's Reading Corner. She is a new favorite booktuber of mine. I've been watching a lot of the sprints with the Late Night Crew. That's usually when I actually have a chance to read, and they're usually doing live, so that's really nice. And it seems like of the people who tend to show up on those lives, I might have the most common interest with Rye. So I'm going to tag you, Rye, if you happen to see this and want to do this tag. I'd love to see your answers. And I'm also going to tag Brandon from Brandon's Bookshelf, or Brandon's Books. I think Brandon's Bookshelf. But I'm going to tag you, Brandon, because I'm really curious in your fiction reads. So I know you mentioned talking more about what you're reading for fiction, but I'd love to hear. So if you want to do this tag, that would be awesome. If not, no pressure. And thank you everybody for hanging out. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye guys.